On the afternoon of November the 8th of 2019, a substitute teacher was captured on cell phone video brutally assaulting a special needs student at Lehman High School in Kyle, Texas. The factors that had led to the attack remained unclear, but 32-year-old Tiffany Langford was shown repeatedly punching the student before throwing her to the floor and stomping on the back of her neck. Langford had started working for the school district in August of that year and was reportedly teaching a Spanish class at the time. As reported by the Hays County Sheriff's Office, the teenage victim was taken to a hospital in the incident's wake. The injuries she sustained from the teacher's forceful blows weren't deemed life-threatening, and she was later sent home. Langford, who'd passed a background check prior to being employed, was arrested on charges of aggravated assault, a second-degree felony, and fired from her position that same day. Number 7. Adrian Ackers. A teacher from Lapier High School in Illinois was placed on paid leave following his arrest for an altercation with a student that had occurred on September the 19th of 2022. The teenager had reportedly punched 44-year-old Adrian Ackers multiple times in the face following an argument. Ackers retaliated by lifting the student by the legs, taking him down and pinning him to the floor while waiting for the police to arrive at the scene. The teen was transported to a local hospital for treatment, but the extent of the injuries he'd sustained in the altercation remained unclear. Ackers was arrested by Springfield police and faced the charge of aggravated battery. He was also believed to have been injured during the fight, as he was shown wearing a neck brace in his processing photo. The teacher made an appearance at Sangamon County Circuit Court and was subsequently released on a recognizance bond. He was banned from contacting the student or anyone from Lapier, as an investigation into the incident was underway. Number 6. Marston Riley. In the fall of 2018, music teacher Marston Riley was working at Maywood Academy High School in Maywood, a small city southeast of downtown Los Angeles. In November, Riley, who was at the time in his mid-60s, was arrested for attacking a male student. The latter had reportedly thrown a basketball at the teacher and had also cursed at him following an argument about him not wearing his school uniform. As tensions escalated, the teen got in Riley's face and called him a racial slur. Cell phone video showed the teacher swinging wildly at the student. The teen fought back but ended up on his knees with his arms wrapped around the teacher's legs. Riley then repeatedly struck him in the head with his cell phone before the fight was broken up by a security guard and other students. Riley was taken into custody on a charge of causing corporal injury to a child while the student was hospitalized with moderate injuries, from which he fully recovered in the aftermath. Riley was released from jail after posting bond. He received a considerable amount of support from staff and parents as his legal case unfolded, with over $200,000 being raised to cover his bills. In late October of 2019, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office dropped the charges against Riley. A number of aspects factored into the decision, including his age, lack of a criminal history, and the fact that the incident had forced him into early retirement and his completion of an anger management course. Following the case's dismissal, the former teacher spoke to the media about the fight. He stated that he'd initially remained calm and had asked the student multiple times to leave the classroom, adding, "The less I did, the more violent he got." Riley claimed that the teen's escalating aggressiveness reminded him of another incident in which he'd allegedly been attacked by 3 students, noting, "My thinking at that time was, this ain't gonna happen to me again." Number 5. Zavera Steele. On April the 17th of 2023, a student and a substitute teacher at Rocky Mount High School in North Carolina were both arrested for simple assault following a violent classroom confrontation. Teacher Zavera Steele had reportedly confiscated a female student's phone, which prompted the teen to approach her space behind the teacher's desk, whereupon an argument ensued. It was followed by a physical altercation during which they grappled, and the unnamed student forcefully grabbed at the teacher's hair, as shown in a cell phone video that subsequently went viral. They ended up on the classroom floor with Steele on top of the student. Roughly 72 hours after the incident, Steele, who'd been with the Nash County Public School System for approximately a year, went on Facebook Live to give her account of the classroom brawl. Steele maintained that she'd followed protocol during the incident and that she hadn't initiated the brawl, adding, "That young lady attacked me and she went for blood." She regarded the altercation and others like it as being among the reasons why teachers were leaving the field and stated an intention of doing the same after a career spanning over 2 decades. During the video, which received over 24,000 comments, Steele showed the spot from where her hair had been ripped out of her head during the fight. The teacher concluded, "As much as I love the kids, I cannot put my life or my livelihood in danger anymore." Number 4. Mary Hastings. A geometry teacher at Ozen High School in Beaumont, Texas, was arrested on assault charges in the spring of 2016 after she was caught on video striking a student. As reported by others in the classroom, the male student in question had asked about a grade during the 4th period maths class, which seemingly enraged 63-year-old Mary Hastings. The full context of the argument wasn't made immediately clear, as Hastings was recorded telling the student, "Because you're stopping him from graduating, you idiot." She then pushed papers off the student's desk and struck him 5 times with an open palm. The student asked, "Why did you do that?" To which Hastings replied by mockingly repeating his words back at him. She was arrested that day for assault and was subsequently released on a $2,500 bond. A few of the students who'd witnessed the attack spoke to the media in its wake and described it as being out of character for Hastings. The woman was characterized by multiple accounts as a really cool and caring teacher. Number 3. Kanger Smith. In the spring of 2019, a video went viral on social media of teacher Kanger Smith attacking one of his students at Glen Hills Middle School in Augusta, Georgia. The unnamed teen was reportedly asked to leave the classroom because he was being disrespectful. He refused to do so and proceeded to challenge Smith's authority. In the clip, the teen was seen pushing up against the teacher, who towered over him. Smith then shoved the student into a desk as frantic screams from the others in the classroom were heard in the clip's audio. The student tried to push back but was overpowered and taken to the ground. Smith then picked him up and dragged him in the hallway before the video cut off. Smith was placed on paid administrative leave, and an investigation was launched by the Richmond County Board of Education Administration and the RCBOE Police. Updates indicated that a warrant for Smith was approved, charging the teacher with simple battery. A Change.org petition for the charges against the teacher to be dropped gathered 3,705 signatures in the incident's wake. Number 2. Vivian Nawari. In November of 2022, Spanish teacher Vivian Nawari was taken into custody and charged with second-degree assault and physical child abuse after she'd attacked one of her students at Largo High School in Prince George's County, Maryland. The student, who was reported as being in her late teens, had confronted 36-year-old Nawari because she'd contacted her parents the previous night and complained about her behavior. While following Nawari around the classroom and trying to force a conversation with her, the student stepped on the teacher's foot and bumped into her. According to charging documents, Nawari struck the student several times in the back of the head with a closed fist, kicked her, and then threw her to the ground. The incident was caught on video by other students. Nawari was arrested and placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation. The teenage victim admitted to having stepped on the teacher's foot, but maintained that it had been an accident. Updates from mid-January of 2020 indicated that the charges against Nawari had been dropped, but that the case remained under investigation. Teresa Dudley, president of the County Teachers Union, told a media outlet that Nawari should have never been charged in the first place, stating, "You can look at the video and you can see that the student was clearly the aggressor and was much larger than she was." We have another profession lined up for you after number 1 that you probably wouldn't immediately associate with attacking people. Stay tuned if you haven't yet seen our video on when clowns attack. Number 1. Madison Anthony. In January of 2023, a substitute teacher from Florida was arrested on a child abuse charge after she'd allegedly struck a special needs student with a book. A staffer approached a resource officer at the Champion Elementary School in Volusia County to report that they'd witnessed 25-year-old Madison Anthony attack a student in the exceptional student education classroom. The students in the class reportedly had learning and behavioral disabilities requiring additional school resources. Anthony had reportedly decided to discipline a child she'd seen strike a peer with a book. She told them, "You hit her, I hit you." The teacher then took the book out of their hands, got closer by walking around a table, and made good on her threat. Anthony again warned the student, "What you do to her, I'll do to you." Upon learning about the attack, the student's parents contacted the police and decided to press criminal charges against the educator. Anthony was arrested on a third-degree felony charge of assault and taken to jail. She was reported to have initially attempted to downplay the incident, but ultimately admitted she'd struck the child. Anthony was consequently removed from the school system's list of approved substitutes. Number 8. Elisa Zabraski. In 2018, the mugshot of Ohio woman Elisa Zabraski went viral due to her full-face clown-like tattoos. Zabraski had been arrested at a Walmart in Boardman Township for shoplifting a bag. The police searched her and found a hypodermic needle, an orange pill, and a rock-like white substance. She would later admit that they were methamphetamine and a Suboxone pill. The 27-year-old was charged with theft, as well as with possession of drugs and drug abuse instruments. It was Zabraski's third arrest over a period of only 6 months. The last photos she'd uploaded to Facebook in 2012 showed her with lighter hair and no face tattoos. Her subsequent mugshots revealed a dramatic transformation, with artwork that included a spider web across her forehead, clown colors around the eyes, and skull motifs on the cheekbones, nose, and lips. Sources suggest that a part of Zabraski's sentence involved her taking part in a drug rehabilitation program. Number 7. Oliver Legat. From 2014 to 2015, British man Oliver Legat committed a series of robberies and terrorized the staff of several Beefeater restaurants in Devon. The 23-year-old reportedly harbored a grudge against the chain after he'd been fired from one of its branches. He committed the first offense in May of 2014 at a Beefeater in Newton Abbot. While wearing a terrifying clown mask, Legat threatened 2 female employees with a large knife before fleeing empty-handed. The second time, in December of that same year, Legat targeted a restaurant in Paignton and made off with over £6,000. His final attack took place in April of 2015. He dragged the female manager by the hair and forced her to open the safe, after which he fled with thousands of pounds. Legat was subsequently apprehended by the authorities and sentenced to 13 years and 3 months in prison. Number 6. Sheila Keane Warren. For 27 years, the murder of Marlene Warren at the hands of a clown had remained unsolved. On May the 26th of 1990, the 40-year-old woman was shot on the doorstep of her home in Palm Beach County, Florida. Her son, in his early 20s at the time, and his friends were in the kitchen. They'd seen a white Chrysler LeBaron park in the driveway. A clown-clad person came out of the vehicle, carrying balloons and a floral arrangement. As Warren answered the door, the clown, without uttering a word, shot her in the face at point-blank range. The attacker then calmly walked back to the LeBaron and drove away. Warren was rushed to the hospital, where she passed away 2 days later. At the time of her death, Warren's husband, Michael, was working with a woman named Sheila Keane. It was rumored that they were having an affair, and even though Keane had become a suspect, there wasn't enough evidence to tie her to the murder. She and Michael married in 2002. Warren's murder remained a cold case until 2014, when the investigation was reopened in light of new DNA evidence. Hair samples from the getaway vehicle, along with the accounts of costume store clerks, tied Keane to the killing of her husband's first wife. An arrest warrant was issued in Keane's name, and the 54-year-old was apprehended at the Virginia home she shared with Michael in September of 2017. The prosecution initially sought the death penalty, but in February of 2020 announced they'd no longer be pursuing it. In light of the pandemic, Keane's trial was postponed until the spring of 2021. It's unclear what role, if any, Michael had had in Warren's murder. Number 5. Tony Alexander Pete. In March of 2010, a suspected burglar with clown tattoos on his face was arrested in Ogden, Utah, by members of the U.S. Marshals Joint Criminal Apprehension Team. He was identified as 43-year-old Tony Alexander Pete. His mugshot, taken at Weber County Jail, showed harlequin face tattoos, reminiscent of the makeup worn by Brandon Lee in the 1994 movie, The Crow. The Marshals had gone to the home in search of another individual when they found Pete inside. He'd been living or hiding out in a closet. The man, known by his street name, Happy, was arrested for criminal trespass. Pete, however, was also a suspect in a home burglary, which had occurred on February the 24th. A man reported that he'd awoken to find two intruders standing over him, one of whom he'd later identify as Pete. The intruders told the victim that they were police officers. They then threw a blanket over him and fled on foot after stealing his Dell computer. Number 4. Christian Gulzar. On May the 23rd of 2017, 29-year-old transient Brian Lucero was fatally stabbed in the throat by a man wearing clown makeup. Lucero and 36-year-old Christian Gulzar, a familiar figure on Denver's death metal scene, had gotten into a fight in the parking lot of Torchy's Tacos. Gulzar, whose face was painted white with dark streaks, was wearing blade-supplemented gloves, similar to those of horror movie character Freddy Krueger. The blades extended from each finger and were estimated to have been 2 to 3 inches in length. The row was reported shortly before 1 a.m. Officers arrived to find Lucero unresponsive with a visible stab wound in his neck. A suspect, matching the description given to the authorities by eyewitnesses, was captured by surveillance cameras. The suspect was riding a scooter and was seen throwing an object into some bushes nearby. The police retrieved the object, which turned out to be a bloodied knife. When the police arrested Gulzar, they found blood on his clothes. He admitted to getting into a fight with Lucero but claimed that the transient had tried to steal his scooter. Gulzar didn't mention the knife and instead speculated that during the row, Lucero had gotten hurt on his glove or the spikes from his metal bracelet. Investigators didn't find his story credible, particularly since Gulzar had been arrested in the past for assault. A jury ultimately found him guilty of second-degree murder. Gulzar was associated with a local band called the Undertakers. As they performed their music, he'd dance on stage while dressed as a devil. The Undertakers and Gulzar had fallen out about a year prior to the killing, and they'd reportedly been receiving death threats from him. According to the band members, he was obsessed with demons and the occult, as well as with spiked or bladed weaponry. Number 3. Kevin Lapier. In 2017, an award-winning Belgian clown was arrested for killing his ex-girlfriend in front of her children. Only a few years prior, Kevin Lapier had been named the best clown in Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg for his ability to captivate audiences. As Clown Toby, he entertained sick children for a living and had even made an impression on Belgium's Got Talent. A few days prior to the killing, Lapier had broken up with his 47-year-old girlfriend, only identified as Caroline D. The breakup had reportedly occurred because the performer didn't get along with the woman's children. He drove to her home in the town of Oudenburg. Lapier tied up her 3 children, aged 12, 15, and 17. He then made them watch as he butchered their mother. Some reports claim that he laughed maniacally as he committed the horrific murder, allegedly stating, "I am a monster, I do know that." He then fled the scene. The police found the woman's body in the garage and her children, who were alive, tied up in the attic. Lapier then drove to his hometown of Bredin and climbed to the roof of a 13-story apartment block. He threatened to jump, fired a gun in the air and threw debris onto the streets below. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Lapier even broadcasted some of his antics on Facebook Live. The police standoff ended with snipers from an adjacent rooftop pinning him down. Lapier was arrested and faced multiple years in prison. 38-year-old yodeler Desween Haghaman, who sometimes performed alongside Lapier as his sidekick, was also arrested as a suspected accomplice in the killing. Number 2. Assassination of Francisco Rafael Arellano Felix. On October the 18th of 2013, Mexican drug lord Francisco Rafael Arellano Felix was assassinated by a shooter dressed as a clown while celebrating his 64th birthday. The party, held at a banquet hall in Los Cabos, was attended by prominent politicians, business figures, athletes, and other celebrities. At around 8 p.m., a black SUV parked near the entrance of the ballroom. In the back seat was a clown wearing a bright blue costume, a red nose, and a hot pink curly wig. He made his way through the establishment and approached Felix. The clown pulled out a gun from his costume and shot the former Tijuana cartel leader in the head at point-blank range. The assassin fired several other shots into Felix as he fell to the floor. He died at the scene. Panic ensued, and the clown fled towards the SUV. He let off a few more shots outside to deter attendees, including one of Felix's sons, from pursuing him. The killer clown escaped and so far hasn't been identified. Felix wasn't wanted by the federal government at the time, and the investigation into his murder fell under state jurisdiction. The authorities have yet to concretely determine who was behind the assassination. In 2014, they stated that one potential mastermind was the leader of Los Antrax, an armed squadron of enforcers affiliated with the rival Sinaloa cartel. This, however, wasn't definitively proven. Number 1. John Wayne Gacy. Arguably the most infamous killer clown in history, John Wayne Gacy claimed dozens of victims in the 1970s, for which he was ultimately executed via lethal injection in 1994. By his own admission, Gacy had committed most of the murders at his ranch in Norridge, a village in Norwood Park Township, Illinois. Gacy ran a successful construction business and was active in his local community as a Democratic Party precinct captain. These elements would help him build the facade behind which he would hide his horrific crimes. Gacy was also part of a clown club. He performed at many parties, charitable events, political functions, and children's hospitals under the names of Patches and Pogo. Sometimes after a performance, Gacy would drink at a local bar, still in costume, before returning home to his family. Professional clowns would later comment on some revealing aspects of Gacy's clown makeup. Most would typically round off the corners of their painted smiles so as not to frighten children. Gacy had upswept points on his smile and fiendish arched eyebrows, which amounted to a terrifying get-up. He would later claim that clowning allowed him to regress into childhood. There's no evidence that he'd ever killed someone while in costume, but after his killings were brought into public attention, the Killer Clown nickname emerged. Gacy's MO involved luring young men and boys to his home and duping them into donning handcuffs under the guise that it was part of a magic trick. Gacy would then abuse and torture his victims before strangling them to death. He claimed at least 33 lives, and the remains of 26 of his victims were buried in the crawl space of his house. He was arrested in December of 1978, following the disappearance of his last known victim, teenager Robert Pierce, while returning home alone at night. Thanks for watching. What's the worst experience you've ever had with a teacher? Let us know in the comments section below.